thing is about being sustainable or wanting to be sustainable, there's just so many options and so much confusing information. And right now there's a massive drive away from using plastic and back to using glass. And I understand that this traditional material that we know is inert and will last for, frankly, hundreds of years and does no damage when it is inert and when it is disposed of, apart from if you tread on it, is currently back in fashion. But we need to remember why we moved away from it. We need to be really clear about the problem that we've tried to solve by moving towards plastic and away from glass. Because glass is heavy. It's carbon intensive because of its weight, not because of its materiality. And as we ship that weight around the world, it has a carbon impact, and that carbon impact increases the chance of climate change and some of the disastrous effects that are going to follow that. So we moved to plastic to remove one environmental problem, and we place plastic in a series of systems that don't work at all. So the plastic escapes and gets stuck in places that it shouldn't get stuck in. Remember, it's us that put it there. Blaming the manufacturers is not always the right choice. I appreciate you shouldn't be pumping plastic into environments and into economies where there is no recycling, but they don't put it in the sea. So I've got a collection of materials here that I want to talk about. We've got a plastic bottle. We've got a glass bottle. We've got an aluminium can, and we've got a Tetra Pak. And I'm going to ask you, which one do you think has the least environmental impact? Well, it's a loaded question because it depends what we're measuring. If we measure carbon, that's one answer. If we measure residency time in the environment, then that's another answer. And if we measure risk to flora and fauna, that's another measure. And there are way more measures than that. So let's just look at it from a carbon point of view, because arguably climate change is the single biggest and most urgent challenge that we face. So what have we got? Cardboard lined with polyethylene and potentially some aluminium in here. I'm not certain, and I'm not going to open it, but I suspect, actually I can probably look under the seam. I suspect not. I suspect it's just cardboard and polyethylene. PET, glass, aluminium. So when we look at these things, when we look at the weight of these things, I've got my notes here because I can't remember everything. When we look at the weight of the glass bottle, that's 173 grams of material in that bottle. When we look at the aluminium can, that's 11 grams of material in that bottle. When we look at the plastic bottle, there's 23 grams. And when we look at the Tetra or cardboard alternative, then there is 31 grams of material in that one. What does that mean? Well, every single material that we use has an embedded carbon impact. It takes carbon to have removed it from the ground, or wherever, the ground in all of these cases, processed it, shaped it, and then delivered it as a finished product, a finished empty bottle. So we have a embedded carbon impact. So what I've done is I've worked out the embedded carbon impact per vessel. I've also done it per milliliter because that's the fairest way of doing it, but we're just going to talk about per bottle today. So what have we got? Which one comes out worse, do you think? Have a guess. Well, I'll tell you, this one comes out worse. 245 grams of CO2 equivalent in that material, in that packaging. So what's next? This one, 105 grams of embedded carbon in this one. Surprising, eh? Which is next worse? Aluminium. Even allowing for the fact that a big proportion of this will be recycled, there is in that one 102 grams of carbon. So when it comes to embedded carbon impact, the one that you would think would be the worst is the best. This one comes in at 65.1 grams of carbon. Now, I'm not saying this is how we should package our materials, our products, our drinks. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when we look at environmental impact, it's significantly more complex than we at first think. How do you navigate through this? You've got to just go with your own gut instinct. What is it that interests you? Is it the fish? There are many, many things affecting the oceans. The single biggest challenge to the oceans is climate change and ocean acidification. That's the single biggest challenge to the oceans. The second biggest challenge to the oceans is overfishing. It's what we eat. The third biggest challenge to the oceans is what we lovingly call ocean debris. And yes, plastic is in there and it's visible and it floats and it's way, 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 way worse than it ever was, and it's a problem. But so too is agricultural runoff from livestock farming, soil runoff from poor agricultural practices. There's a whole load of stuff that enters the ocean other than plastic. We're focusing on totems and we need to zoom out a little bit and look at the whole picture. And then by all means, make the decision that you need to make, that you want to make, but at least have a very clear and level playing field in your mind. Enjoy your drink.